So let's get into the news for this week. As always, we start with Copilot. Okay. The key UK news stories for the last 7 days. BBC to cut 2,000 jobs in major restructure. A major internal shake-up at the BBC has triggered criticism from staff after what was described as a savage call announcing the cuts. The move raises questions about the future of public service broadcasting and digital strategy. This doesn't surprise me at all. BBC has come under a great deal of scrutiny for the way it covers the slop that we're fed from the government, and there's probably very few people now that actually listen to the BBC, whereas it used to be the top news broadcasting platform that there was, especially back in my granddad's day. Like, it was, you watched the BBC or you listened to the BBC on radio as well. But we know that the BBC has been completely captured and only ever gives us one side, and that side is the side the government would have us try to believe. So when it comes to a major internal shake-up at the BBC, I would suggest that that shake-up is because they're not making any money anymore. A lot of people are not even bothering to pay their license fee for their television. As you know, I haven't had a TV for a long, long time, so that doesn't cover me. It's not part of my repertoire when it comes to having mainstream broadcast at me. I'm always very alternative, and I haven't had a TV for a long time, so I don't have to worry about the license fee. But I know that a lot of people just aren't bothering to pay it anymore. Point 2. Nearly 200 prisoners released in error due to system failures. A damning revelation that almost 200 inmates were mistakenly released last year highlights deep structural problems in the UK's prison and probation systems. I haven't seen anything about this on alternative media, and I have been on various social media websites over the week, just catching up on the day-to-day of what's going on. I haven't seen anything about this, but that is very damning. That means that there's a massive failure in our systems when it comes to the prison and probation systems. I'll keep my eyes open, but it doesn't bode very well when we've got criminals and basically being released when they shouldn't be released. Okay, number 3, London synagogue targeted in attempted firebomb attack. Police are investigating an anti-Semitic arson attempt at a North London synagogue, adding to concerns about rising hate crime incidents. Okay, I haven't heard anything about this either. Maybe I've had my head under a bush for a while, I don't know, but there hasn't been very much reporting of this on social media, and this comes from The Independent. I don't know whether, well, obviously Copilot classes The Independent as alternative media. I'm not so sure I would, but police are investigating. We have, on social media, there's been quite a lot of incidences of what they call false flag events, and the general consensus is that there are people in this world, not in this country, who would like to garner support for certain countries that aren't doing so well at the moment, i.e. that would be Israel, who's not doing so well at the moment when it comes to the popularity stakes. And that in order to garner popularity and in order for Jewish people to want to leave the countries that they live in at the moment, that these false flags are being attempted as a way to get Jewish people to not feel safe in the countries that they're in. And there have been accusations, this is all speculation, but there have been accusations that these false flags have been happening in various different countries in order to garner support for Israel and their failing nation, which is failing when it comes to the war at the moment. I mean, really, would you want to go and move to Israel with the amount of bombings that are going on from Iran? possibly not. But also there's a sympathy vote basically being garnered here as well, I feel. I could be wrong. It's speculation. It's allegedly, and it's my opinion. But it wouldn't surprise me. RAF jets scrambled over suspected Russian bomber. UK air defence was activated after radar detected what was believed to be a Russian bomber approaching UK airspace. The incident underscores ongoing geopolitical tensions. I would suggest the geopolitical tensions are coming from us. I don't think Russia is intentionally trying to frighten us. I don't think Russia is intentionally trying to threaten us at all. I really don't. I don't feel it in my bones. And I know that's not really very credible when it comes to looking at news. But when I read something like that, I just think our government is trying to keep us perpetually in a state of fear over something that I really don't believe is going to happen. So the geopolitical tensions are coming from us. Our government is causing these tensions. And the last thing I saw from Russia was Putin sitting and laughing and saying, we can't even stop small boats from coming to our country. So how on earth we expect to stop any Russians who might want to come here? It just beggars belief. And I did giggle because he's right. He is right. Okay, point 5. Royal Fleet auxiliary staff to strike over pay dispute. Industrial action is set to hit the RFA, with staff citing ongoing pay erosion and poor working conditions. This adds to a broader wave of public sector labour unrest. Where if there's one thing we do know about our Labour government, they are great at underfunding and not funding institutions that really require funds. So the Royal Fleet auxiliary staff, well, it's just another in a great long list. They have completely underfunded the justice system, and that's collapsing in real time. They've underfunded the National Health Service, that's collapsing in real time. So that doesn't surprise me either. Warnings of cod and mackerel shortages due to overfishing. Environmental groups and regulators warn that UK waters may face significant fish stock depletion, potentially impacting prices and sustainability policy. I haven't seen any of this in alternative media either. Cod and mackerel shortages. Well, when it comes to our UK waters, I'm not sure whether it's only us that are fishing them. I'm sure there are restrictions in place when it comes to UK waters. Overfishing, we'll keep an eye on it, but not from a health and wellbeing point of view. Point 7. Albanian gang used Rightmove to plan £3 million thefts. A criminal group exploited online property floor plans to target high-value homes, raising concerns about digital privacy and crime prevention. My very first thought when it comes to this kind of thing, when it comes to digital privacy and crime prevention, is our government wanting us all to come under a digital ID. If a criminal group and a criminal Albanian group can raise our concerns about digital privacy, imagine what a hacker could do with our digital ID system if it ever gets put in place. Grandmother left with brain damage after misdiagnosis. A hospital misdiagnosed a serious condition as a UTI, leading to severe long-term harm. The case has renewed scrutiny of National Health Service diagnostic pressures. Again, not something that I've come across in alternative media. That's quite concerning. However, the presentation of a UTI is quite vast, and it could cover a great many more concerning conditions. So the fact that it was missed is tragic. However, I would suggest that it's not a failure of our National Health Service diagnostic pressures. I think that it could just have been a serious mistake. Okay. Point 9, learner drivers to be refunded £760,000 over hidden booking fees. Thousands of learner drivers will receive refunds after an investigation found unfair charges in the driving test booking system. So I wonder how that's come about. Unfair charges in the driving test booking system to the tune of 760,000. That's a lot of money. That's going to be paid back to learner drivers. I wonder how that came about. From a health and wellbeing point of view, obviously, it's quite distressing for the learner drivers, but it's probably not quite so distressing, because if they thought they had to pay that fee and then they found out that actually, no, we're going to refund you some part of that fee, then that's probably great. They're probably jumping up and down because they didn't know any different. So, yeah, but from a health and wellbeing point of view, not something that I would look into. Point 10. UK to send £752 million and 120,000 drones to Ukraine. A major new defence package signals a significant escalation in UK support for Ukraine's war effort. I would argue that £752 million would be better served in our country for our citizens. I really think we should get out of Ukraine. As we know, Ukraine had a quite spectacular deal with Russia on the table and were about to sign when our Boris Johnson decided to go over and whisper into Zelensky's ear and tell him not to sign. If he'd have signed then thousands upon thousands of needless deaths would never have happened. So I would like us to come out of Ukraine completely. And the fact that we keep sending them that amount, it's an obscene amount of money when people in our country are suffering, and we've got high petrol prices, we've got cost of living crises, all being put down to the wars that are going on. It's just outrageous. Okay, so that's from Copilot, and nothing that I would really look at from a health and wellbeing point of view, but at least it wasn't all about the mainstream media this week like it was last week. Now we'll go to Claude and we'll ask Claude. Okay, so here's a roundup of the top UK news stories from the past 7 days according to Claude. Resident doctor strikes, National Health Service under pressure. Resident doctors in England carried out a 6-day strike from the 7th to the 13th of April 2026, the 15th time they have walked out since March 2023, and the longest single strike period of the campaign. The BMA, that's the British Medical Association, rejected a government offer of a 3.5% pay rise, arguing the proposal fails to address years of real-term pay cuts, with doctors' pay now around 21% below 2008 levels when adjusted for inflation. A complicating factor is the government's withdrawal of 1,000 promised specialist training posts, leaving many doctors on fixed-term contracts facing unemployment. So yet again, this is a failure of our government. And I'm going to echo the justice system again. The amount of cases that come up for the justice system has increased substantially over the years. However, the amount of funding that goes to that system has not increased at all. So in real time, our government has not kept up with the demand on the justice system. And this is echoed through the national health system as well. So When it says that they're 21% below when you adjust for inflation, they're worse off now than they were in 2008. It's absolutely abysmal. And we're sending millions of pounds to Ukraine. If I was a cynical person, I would say that our government was quite happy for our National Health Service to collapse. And what we're seeing here is effectively a collapse in real time. Iran war energy crisis squeezes UK households. The ongoing US-Israel conflict with Iran is having a direct impact on British living standards. Surging gas, electricity, and petrol prices have fundamentally altered the outlook for living standards in 2026. Working age households that were on track for modest income growth are now projected to see a decline of 0.6%, a turnaround worth £480 per household. UK wholesale natural gas prices rose by roughly 75% between late February and late March, and petrol prices climbed by around 14 pence a litre, about 10%, in the same period. Energy analysts predict the next price cap from 1st of July will increase by around 9%, with further increases expected in subsequent quarters. And they're blaming all of this on the war in Iran, the conflict with Iran. I don't believe that. I think that's a load of poppycock, because just taking the petrol prices as an example, in the UK we pay higher petrol prices than any other country in the world. In the UK we pay higher energy prices than any other country in the world. And the reason we pay so much, considering the people who own the companies have record profits that go to their shareholders, the reason we pay so much is because of the tax and the VAT that is placed upon everything that we use. So when it comes to petrol, 53% of the cost of petrol goes to the government in taxes and VAT. 53%. So for every pound you pay at the pump, 53% of that goes to the government. For what? To give to Ukraine, possibly. Certainly isn't to give to our justice system. Certainly isn't to give to our National Health Service. So I think it's a load of claptrap. I think that we are, again, being fed slop by our government, blaming it all on the conflict with Iran. Last week I brought this up. After COVID, they threw the Ukraine war at us, and it was, the war in Ukraine. That's why the state of our country is so bad, because of the war in Ukraine. And now it's the war in Iran. And again, I will say, the reason our country is in such a state is because of our politicians. Starmer versus Trump, UK foreign policy tensions. Prime Minister Keir Starmer held a telephone call with US President Donald Trump following a week in which Trump criticised Starmer on several occasions for the UK's response to the Iran war. Meanwhile, 3 more B-52 bomber aircraft arrived at RAF Fairford after Starmer agreed to allow US aircraft to take off from UK airbases, while Reeves acknowledged the war's potential impact on households reliant on oil fuel heating as global oil prices briefly exceeded $100 a barrel. So are there really tensions? Are there really? Because we are allowing the US to come and use our bases, use their bases as they look at them. to rearm their aircraft to go and bomb Iran. So I don't think Trump can be that much upset with Starmer because he is allowing it. We have been part of this war from the very beginning. We have been part of this war from before they started bombing, because we were allowing the US to utilize our bases to be able to get ready to go and bomb bomb Iran. Oh, wouldn't it be nice if they were bombing Israel? So I'm not so sure. The source for that is Wikipedia. Wikipedia is always a bit maybe, maybe not. But I think it's all stuff and nonsense. I think Trump's losing it, generally. Disability benefits. Universal credit health cuts take effect from April 2026. Around 730,000 disabled people will lose out on an average of £3,000 per year due to reductions to the universal credit health element for new claimants. Following major protests by disabled people and significant rebellions from Labour MPs, the government did drop its proposed cuts to personal independence payments for existing claimants. But advocacy groups warn serious concerns remain about cuts still proceeding through the Universal Credit Bill. Possibly they need to try and recoup some of that millions that they're sending to Ukraine, because it's certainly not going to be going to support the citizens of this country if they gain any money from making cuts to universal credit. That's really quite concerning, though, because the people that are on universal credit and are on personal independence payments, 730,000 of them are disabled people, and they rely on the money that comes into their homes. Outrageous. Oh, we had this last week. Wireless festival cancelled. Kanye West was banned. Kanye West was blocked from entering the UK after he had been due to perform at the Wireless Festival. The 2026 Wireless Festival was cancelled after the UK government blocked his entrance following criticism of his previous anti-Semitic comments. Pepsi and Diego had already withdrawn their sponsorship before the ban was announced. I did have a think about this after I read about it last week, and I sat and I thought, I know that Kanye West was the headliner, but what about all the other people? What about all the other artists that were going to play? Was he that big a draw that people would have demanded refunds on their tickets? I'm not so sure. I'm really not so sure. Was there really a necessity to cancel the whole concert or festival? I don't know. Northern Ireland, miscarriage leave and new rights. Northern Ireland became the first part of the UK to offer parents 2 weeks of paid leave if a woman experiences a miscarriage at any stage during pregnancy. Separately, new employment rights legislation came into force ahead of local elections, and under new legislation, disabled people are now allowed to try to work without fear of losing their benefits. So that's in Northern Ireland, still part of the UK. I think that's a good move. When a woman experiences a miscarriage, imagine the emotional upheaval that woman goes through. And it would be really nice if, I'm not sure whether it's just the women or whether it says parents. So it would be really good if that includes the male counterpart to the marriage. That's really quite good. Stamp prices and cost of living creep. The price of a first-class stamp increased by 10 pence to £1.80, while a second-class stamp rose by 4 pence to 91 pence. A small but symbolic sign of the broader cost of living squeeze continuing to bite. So that will be Royal Mail, obviously, who've put those prices up. And I think one of the problems Royal Mail has is they are trying to contend with other carriers now. So that's more over the packages and parcels rather than you would use a stamp for a letter. And possibly because of digital, a lot of people maybe not sending things through the post anymore. I mean, when it comes to Christmas and birthdays and things like that, people send cards, but you can do that online now. So from the digital point of view, I think possibly that the creep up of the price of stamps is reflecting the fact that there's a lack of people sending things through the post. So in order to be able to kind of keep up and to be able to stay viable, it doesn't surprise me that they put their prices up. Okay, so that was Claude. Again, not really anything I would go into when it comes to health and well-being. And now we have Grok. Ooh. Fuel and energy shortages looming. The UK faces potential diesel and jet fuel shortages within 2 to 3 weeks due to disruptions from the ongoing Iran-related conflict, including the US blockade of the Strait of Hormuz. Industry and ministerial sources highlight risk to critical supplies, though petrol stocks remain relatively stable. This has sparked discussions on rationing, pricing, and emergency measures. Okay. Well, we've said it when we looked at Claude, that when it comes to the cost of petrol, we know that our government is taking a massive slice of that. And if they wanted to, they could take less of a slice of that and pass that saving on to us. But they haven't, and they aren't. But I think they might be, because the next bit was something that I was really hoping would come up in the news and didn't come up with Claude, didn't come up with Copilot. Farmers are planning nationwide fuel price protests and blockades, modelled on recent Irish actions. Amid ongoing anger over Labour's inheritance tax policies on farms, Northern Ireland could see the first actions as early as this week, with mainland groups meeting soon to coordinate. Well, Ireland had their fuel protests. They blockaded roads. They made it impossible for transit through major parts of Ireland. And with that, from what I understand, they actually got a price decrease on their diesel and petrol from the government. They tried to establish a vote of no confidence in their government, but that wasn't voted for by the Irish government. But they aren't stopping. They're continuing, and they're continuing to protest. And they've got the sense that we are the many, they are the few. So if we can bring industry to a halt in Ireland, then the government will have to act. And they've coordinated. They are very coordinated, and it's working. And off the back of that, in the UK, we have had fuel protests that actually started today. There was a poster that went around on alternative media saying that there would be blockades of main trunk roads throughout the whole of Britain. 3 different places on the A1, and all the major what we would class as trunk roads, the big, carry a lot of people every single day. And those protests started today. As far as I'm aware, they're going to continue tomorrow and also on Friday. I'm not so sure that the British have got the understanding that we are the many, they are the few. I think there's a degree of apathy in Britain that if we just wait it out, maybe the prices will come down. Whereas I would argue that if we wait it out, maybe the government will sit and say, well, they're accepting the prices as they are. Let's leave them there. That's my opinion. It's definitely my opinion, only from what our government is like and what we know how our government acts. Like if we get used to something, then they'll go, "Oh, right, well, we'll push it a little bit more and see what we can get away with." So it wouldn't surprise me. However, if more people come out for these blockades and it's blocking major roads, if we can grind Britain to a halt and people can't get where they need to go on our roads, then the government will have to act. So the more people that know about it, tell your friends, tell everybody. The more people that know about it and the more often it's done, the better chance we have of actually getting through to our government that it is not acceptable that they take 53% of the petrol for taxes and VAT. And they could easily lower that, easily. Defence and military preparedness. UK military chiefs have been tasked with finding 3.5 billion in savings while simultaneously preparing the armed forces for potential war scenarios. This comes amid broader debates on defence spending, NATO concerns, and criticisms of government complacency. Discussions include expanding live facial recognition by police and long-term readiness plans. So another way to creep in facial recognition technology. I find it really difficult to understand why we need to be in a state of preparedness. If we can negotiate with other countries other than the US, other than Israel, why can't we negotiate with Russia? Why can't we talk to Russia? Why can't we negotiate with countries that the US don't particularly favour? Starmer now wants to put us back into the EU after, I think it was 17 million people voted, over 17 million people voted to come out of the EU. He's now sneakily trying to get us back in. It's just our government does not take what we as citizens want seriously at all. At all. And I can bet your bottom dollar that £3.5 billion going towards potential war scenarios is not what the citizens of this country would want. Migrant crossings and asylum issues. Small boat crossings across the Channel continue, with hundreds arriving in recent good weather windows. Alternative coverage highlights judicial blocks on deportations, e.g. the Eritrean asylum seeker case citing mental health and ongoing strains on the system under the current government. I'm aware that there have been a lot of protests and demonstrations around the hotels that asylum seekers have been put into. I haven't seen anything too untoward happening, but again, the citizens of this country are really not very happy with our government when it comes to the migrants and the asylum issues. But you know my voice on that. If we weren't so complicit in all the wars that are going on, then possibly these people wouldn't want to leave their countries. Broader asylum system critiques include reports of advisors allegedly helping migrants make claims, though some mainstream probes exist. Alternative outlets frame it as systemic abuse. Yes, it is abuse of our existing systems. Political tensions with Trump and international relations. Friction between Keir Starmer and Donald Trump has been prominent, including threats to alter the UK-US trade deal, disagreements over responses to the Iran situation, and Starmer's diplomatic efforts, calls and visits. King Charles's upcoming US trip is viewed in some coverage as an attempt to repair ties. Protests in London, including chants outside Downing Street, have reflected divisions over Middle East policy. Yeah, great divisions, because we're being lied to. Starmer tells us we're not involved, and we are. We have been. We have been. We still are. We still are involved. And it's just so two-faced to go over to the Middle East of Starmer and try and negotiate some sort of deal and some sort of negotiating peace to get through the Straits of Hormuz, when we're allowing America to use our bases to go and bomb Iran. If I was Iran, I wouldn't talk to us. It's absolutely ridiculous. Other notable stories: crime and social issues, reports of specific incidents like a trial involving serious allegations against an adoptive couple in Blackpool, shoplifting videos circulating widely, and debates around policing or manosphere influences in institutions. I haven't seen anything about that. Economy and business, house builder warnings on costs, potential energy firm collapse, Given Energy, Give Energy, and retail store closures, the FTSE fluctuations tied to global events, and local protest, farmer sector discontent, and cultural stories, music inductions or royal updates, but with alternative spins on underlying policy failures. Okay, well, there were a few things that I saw this week that haven't come up in any of the AI that we've looked at. We have now lost our, it's probably not fair to say lost, we have had our right to protest come under scrutiny under the Policing Act that I brought to you. If you haven't checked out the video on protesting in the UK that I did, it's about 2-3 months ago. And I said that the policing bill was going through and that they were trying to curb our freedom to protest, which is a fundamental right in the UK, and they've done it. They have passed that as part of the bill. They've given the Met Police extraordinary powers that if they believe that a protest could become unable to be handled, I suppose, given the history of protests, then they can deny your right to protest now. And the last protest that happened was Defend Our Juries, and that was in London, and there were over 500 people who were arrested for holding a peaceful protest, but were arrested for holding placards that said, I support Palestine action, I don't like genocide. And over 500 people were arrested by the police, even though Palestine action is not proscribed anymore. It's been said that it's unlawful, that they were classed as a terrorist organisation, because they weren't. And now if you want to argue against genocide and the killing of babies, children and women and men, you're classed as a terrorist in this country, and your right to protest has been taken away. So even though that wasn't something that came up on any of the AI news, it was something that I felt I needed to bring to you. But do check out the protesting video that I did. It's on YouTube. You'll find it. Not really anything that I'm going to go into very heavily when it comes to our health and well-being side of things. But for now, that is the news for this week.